Hi, my name is Josue, and I'm going to be doing my Teach Me simulation project. Mine is on the language barriers impacting participation and equity in the classrooms. So here's our agenda for what we're going to be following today and kind of the guidelines of what we're going to be going through. So we're going to be experiencing what it's like to be an English learner student and someone who might not understand the instruction that they're being taught because it's in a language they don't understand. And we're going to understand why it's an issue and really reflect on that, some things that we've learned about it, and then some actions and strategies that we can do help decrease this issue, and then debrief, seeing what we can do to help these students. So these are the learning goals that I have for you guys today that I'm hoping you can get out of this presentation. So some of the things that I'm hoping that you have learned after listening to this is that you understand how language barriers affect English learner students and how it has such a big impact on their participation and what they can achieve, and really experience what it's like to learn or communicate in an unfamiliar language in a classroom setting. And I want you to think about what you could be doing differently in your student teaching or how you will go into your student teaching now with this knowledge. So, what does it feel like to not understand the language of instruction? And for this, I have a worksheet that I will be giving you guys. And this is so that we can really understand and mimic what it's like to be an English learner in this class. So, you're going to work in groups to solve these math problems. And ideally, this is in groups of 3 to 4, and you will assign roles to each other. One could be a reader, another could be a recorder, and have someone be a language analyst. And this makes sure that everyone has equal participation in this group. So I want you to do this worksheet and discuss with your group members about how students might react in this situation. And just kind of talk to them and see, what do you notice about your participation throughout the worksheet? What do you notice about your confidence? How would students react in this situation in a classroom setting where it might be a bit more stressful? So here I have this worksheet, and for some of these I cannot pronounce the languages. I'm so sorry, but for the top left one, I have this set of numbers and I do not know what it says. I don't know what it's asking me to. Um but I know, since I made the worksheet, I know that it's asking me to order the numbers from least to greatest, but I wouldn't know that. I mean, for all I know, if I was an English learner student, I might end up adding them and dividing and finding the average. But what I did was completely wrong, and I would lose points on that. And you see some similarities in some words, as in the top right one. I can see that I have a similarity of multiply and binomial, so I'm gonna assume that I have to multiply binomials, but I still don't want to go on about my instruction having students assume what they're doing. And then for the third one, I'm not sure if it's asking me to state an angle or to find the missing angle. I could be asked to just pick an angle and say what degree it is, or I could be asked to find the value of x. I'm not sure. And then for number 4, it's a simple math problem where I know what the instruction is in, and I know that it's just asking me to plot these 2 points. Okay, so now that we finished that worksheet, I'm just going to show you guys some student statistics about San Diego Unified School District. So in the academic year of 2024 to 2025, they had about 113,000, almost 114,000 students for that academic year, and about 17.3% of those were English learners, so almost a fifth of the San Diego Unified class that year. About almost 12% of those students spoke Spanish, and then the other percentages they were made up of other languages, and this was provided by Ed Data that I do have linked at the end. And I want to briefly explain why this is such a big issue in schools and why it can create so many gaps in a student's education and the opportunities they want to pursue. So, English learners, they often struggle to fully access instruction, and when they're not understanding certain material or they're not understanding the instruction they're being taught because it's in a language they can't understand, that usually dims their confidence and you end up seeing their participation decreasing as the school year goes. And this can also cause English learners to score lower on certain standardized tests or certain exams, and they could be regarded as low performing when in reality they're not low performing. They're just not getting the education in a language they can understand. And what I'm hoping that we can start pivoting towards is thinking of how can we make our certain classrooms open to diversity, open to multiple languages for instruction? How do we make that accessible for all these students? So I want you guys to kind of discuss with each other and ask yourself some of these questions. I just would like to point out that this simulation was designed to generate empathy for these students and really understand what it's like to be in their position and how stressful it could be for them and why they get their confidence dimmed the year. So, how does this experience mirror what English learners might feel in your classroom? And how would this impact their test scores throughout the year? How would this impact their goals throughout the year, their ambitions, stuff like that? And how can we help our students not feel like that? How can we encourage them to pursue those opportunities and strive for better goals? So, some actions that we could take are using certain diagrams and visuals. I know that in elementary, at least for me, I was very reliant on visuals. I would always see certain diagrams, whether it be for science, English, history, math, all the subjects always had pictures and visuals, and it could kind of have a story to it. And we don't really see that as much in secondary school. So, kind of bringing that same principle back, I think that would help a lot. And another thing is peer language partnerships. Some students are bilingual. If you do have a bilingual student, partnering them up with somebody who might not understand that certain instruction in English, that would help them a lot. And how would we implement this? So we would start by using peer language partnerships and then seeing how students succeed throughout the year and seeing if their participation increases, the more that they can get to their education. So we're going to do a little debrief, and I want you to think about what worked and what didn't work, and think about what you might have wanted to change. So, does this facilitation work better now that you understand what students might go through since you saw the diagram, or were the slides enough to show you? And how does this vary from elementary school students to secondary students? And here I have the experiential learning cycle, and this is kind of what we did. So I have in the first column our phases listed, and then in the second is what the learners, you guys watching, did, and then for the third column is what I did throughout the presentation. So for the first phase, we experienced and we completed a worksheet in an unfamiliar language, and then we moved on to the next phase where we thought about it. We discussed those feelings, and we saw how this could correlate with student participation throughout the year. And then we reflected on it in the third phase. We analyzed why these certain issues were happening and we tied that stuff together. And then for our last phase, now we're acting on it. We want to take a preventative measure to try to get equal access to education for all of our students, regardless of language barrier. And these are all the sources I have. Some were provided to find the education data for San Diego Unified, and some were for the action slides and what we could do to better prevent. They are listed here if you need ideas for what you could do in your classrooms and stuff like that. But thank you for watching. I really hope that you understand how English learners would have a way harder time in the classroom and have a lot more less ambition to achieve greater in our class when they don't understand the instruction that they're being given. Thank you.